Hey, what's up, guys? Just give us a minute here while Chad hops on. Hang tight.
Testing, testing. One, two, three.
What's up, man? How you doing, Chad?
Good, good, good.
Yeah, just us today, so we can go whenever. Welcome, everybody.
We don't have anybody from Nine Realms joining today, or just you and me?
Not that I know of. So unless anyone wants to, unless anyone wants to come, then I don't think anyone else is coming on today. But
All right,
there's
very
still a
good,
lot of
very
interesting
good.
things to discuss. Last week you were on for the Edge Wallet space, right? Those guys are rock solid. Yeah, I think you left a little bit early, but I was super impressed by Paul and the rest of the team at Edge Wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, to my knowledge, I think that's the first wallet to interface with us to be able to do swaps and such, which is pretty cool.
Yep, just another one of the providers on the app.
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see if we look up their affiliate fee that they're using. Like on the on the swaps and transactions, like how much trade volume are they funneling through THORChain, and is that number increasing over time or what?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll definitely keep an eye on that over time. I think they charge 50 bips, I think.
I wish that was on the Thor yield site where you could just look at all the affiliate fees and then it just showed you how much trade volume each affiliate was doing.
Yeah, well, we have some Nine Realms dashboards for that, and just to track that stuff. I think there's some flip side tables that track the affiliate fees over time.
Oh yeah. Well, let me get my hands on that to see how many affiliate fees are there and what kind of volume we're seeing from each of them, and that'd be kind of cool to see.
All right, Chad, quick question for you before we go into any THORChain stuff. Can you make the argument that Bitcoin? So Bitcoin and Ethereum, we both know that there's been incidents where they've had to roll back the chain. Can you make the argument that Bitcoin has rolled back, but Ethereum has not rolled back?
I mean, so there were.
I just saw this guy trying to make this point earlier today, and to me that it doesn't. I don't think you could say that Bitcoin has rolled back and not also say that Ethereum has rolled back in blocks.
Well, I think there was a rollback on Bitcoin in I want to say 2012, because there was some kind of bug in the code, like an overflow bug, where all of a sudden there was 800 trillion Bitcoin in supply, just some, minting issue. And there was an uber crazy amounts of Bitcoin that existed in the network for some period of time. And then there was a rollback done by Satoshi and, the rest of the miners at the time to roll back the chain. I think if I'm remembering, I mean, I wasn't around in crypto at the time, so I'm just going off of what I've heard about or read about secondhand. And so that was, I guess, in a sense, a rollback. But on Ethereum's case, I'm not aware. They did the whole ETH classic ETH thing. That wasn't a rollback. That was actually just forking the chain. So I don't think that would consider it to be a rollback.
So it's a semantic argument, I guess. It's not. It's just on the definition of rollback and not actually the state of the chain being altered.
Yeah. I think it's. But even recently, there was some sort of exploit with Geth. I think it was a year ago or something like this, or 6 months ago, whatever it was. And I don't think there's a rollback from that. I don't think there's ever been to my knowledge, and I'm not an expert on this topic, but to my knowledge, there's never been a rollback on Ethereum's network.
Interesting semantic argument. And that also reminds me of the BSC exploit that happened last night, I guess late last night. Looks like there's, I don't even know. It looks like over 100 million that was exploited on Binance Smart Chain by basically spoofing a message from the bridge from a block that was over 2 years ago for 1 million BNB twice on Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty clever.
That's
too.
crazy.
That's a pretty complex exploit or attack vector, right? So, in some sense, props to the person who discovered it, but obviously bad to steal funds from people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I guess we can get into some THORChain stuff. Avalanche launch was this week, and things are looking real nice on the Avalanche pools right now. It looks like there's almost 400K in liquidity on AVAX with THORSwap is estimating 73% APR, but I guess that's with the data from the past like week or two or so. So I guess that's not entirely accurate, but I mean, 500K in the first week of launch is pretty successful in my book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's gonna be hard to see in the first week. Like you always give these things time. Like the APR is obviously not going to be accurate for at least a couple weeks. I wouldn't take the APR too seriously for the first couple weeks at least. And hopefully, like over time, people will be adding more liquidity to the AVAX pool, and I think some relationships that the Nine Realms team specifically is kind of fostering with the AVAX community, with a bunch of different communities in that world that I probably can't go into details right now, but like all that's kind of happening on the back end. So like it's going to be like a multi-month process of trying to kind of garner support for THORChain from the AVAX community.
Yeah, we had a great Twitter space on Tuesday with A Ventures. They're kind of like 0x Ventures, just with AVAX, related things. And we did a great Twitter space with them, and just like, talking with the Avalanche community. It's just so fresh going back into the, I don't know. It feels like we're back in March, right? Where it's like, people trying to understand like the very basics of THORChain, just like asking questions about like, like how the mechanics work. And it was just very fresh, like talking to like people that haven't been exposed to THORChain before and are just learning what it can do.
Yep.
And like there's so many people out there that are like, really curious and want to use, new dApps, and just explain to them the concepts of THORChain, that THORChain is like an app. It's like an app chain basically, which is like, something that people are familiar with in the Avalanche ecosystem and can relate to.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think like one of the kind of interesting things with Avalanche is that Pangolin is launching as a DEX aggregator in the near future, and if they haven't already, I can't remember, but they're launching fairly soon, and just by the act of doing so, just kind of puts a lot of pressure on the other DEXs in that space to kind of get in while they can. You know what I mean? Not while they can, not like the doors closing on them or anything like this, but just like it just kind of puts additional pressure on them to actually take THORChain more seriously and integrate, because they're going to provide value that to their competitors that they're not currently able to support. And so it's going to be this kind of fascinating thing of like, as we try to expand to new wallets, like Edge and new DEXs like Pangolin, like the more they kind of click in, the easier it is to get the remaining people to click in as well, right? Like the first kind of few dominoes are always the hardest ones to kind of to tip over, but then eventually it just kind of causes a cascading effect. And then at some point, like we won't even have conversations with a lot of these wallets or exchange DEXs or exchanges. Like they'll just integrate 100% on their own without even having a conversation with myself or Nine Realms.
Yeah, and it seems like all the conversations recently, like people have been very receptive on integrating THORChain, like much more so than they were like 6 or even like 3 months ago. It just seems like the I don't know, the mindset around it has kind of made a shift for the better.
Yeah, there was one, and I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to throw public dirt at any particular project, but like there was one me and a couple people kind of met with, and the people from their team were just like weirdly cocky. Like to me, they were just weirdly cocky. Like they were just saying that what they're doing, what they're building, is the greatest thing ever to exist, and like we peasants of the THORChain community do not belong. Like it was something like they didn't say those words, of course, but it just that's what it sounded like. And I was just like kind of shaking my head, like, what the hell? Like, what do these guys build? Like, not much. like it's a fork of something else that already exists. And it's like, congratulations. And it's just like it was such a funny thing. And then all of a sudden, like, at some point in recent history, they came back and they were like, oh, hey, let's start talking again. I found that hilarious.
Yeah, built the 45th EVM to EVM bridge.
Yeah, exactly. It was quite comical. But you're right, though. Like people initially were very kind of resistant in some sense. Like at least a lot of them were, not everybody, but some of them were. And as time goes on and it becomes more and more obvious, the value proposition that we can offer to the rest of the industry becomes overwhelming, and they kind of want to integrate.
Yeah, especially getting on AVAX DEXs and just like being more integrated into these other communities. That was just a very enjoyable part of like Terra, which obviously it failed. But the just like the integration of like that ecosystem with just interfacing with the cross chain app chain of THORChain, it was just like, I don't know, that was just really nice to see, because that's like who this product is built for. It's not built for people to just use THORChain and trade synths all day, I guess. Like, meant for people to like make cross chain swaps. So like it's super positive that hopefully that brings more people on to trading on THORChain interfaces and just using our apps for their trading.
Yeah,
right. We could just be one of the other product offerings in their ecosystem.
Yeah, initially, like in the earlier days of THORChain, I think our attention was to become like the biggest DEX and had all the assets and did all the trade volumes and all the things. But I think we realized as we kind of launched the thing and kind of got into the world and kind of saw how things were kind of like shaping up, that it actually made much more sense to not try to become the front end to much like itself, like, and more so just integrate with as many things as possible. Otherwise you're trying to convince people to move away from the thing they're using now, the thing that they love and have been using for the last X years, and you're trying to convince them to come over to you, which anybody, people do that, and Solana is basically doing that, right? Solana is trying to convince people to stop using Ethereum and start using Solana, which is a very kind of hard fought path to go down. But it becomes much simpler and cleaner when you just say, oh, no, you can just go ahead and stay in your camp and keep on using whatever UI or DEX or wallet that you're using, and then but still have access to all the power and flexibility and things that THORChain can supply. And that way we don't have to convince like a million people to use THORChain, but instead convince like 5 wallets and 5 DEXs to use THORChain. And then at that point, you've convinced a million people, right? Or so.
Yeah, it's true. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Just the decision to make THORChain into this backend rather than some proprietary front end software. Even if it was open source, just having THORChain as the infrastructure and the backend just seems to just fit so much better with the design principles of THORChain, and just makes it so everyone else can implement it so easily as well. So like looking forward to seeing how this kind of plays out a little bit. But it's good because we're going to see this on Pangolin's front end, and
Yep.
other DEXs, and we already saw it on Edge Wallet now. So
Yep.
Super positive.
I see Eridanus in the audience. If you want to jump up and join the convo, you're welcome to. I don't know if he's in the mood to, but he's welcome to join if you like.
Yeah, we got to congratulate him on the AVAX launch. I don't think we had a moment to ourselves. We've just been having other people on these spaces a lot. Yeah. We got some more like coming up that are planned, but we haven't had one just the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. What else have you been thinking about, Chad? Besides like I saw some new like THORFi PRs and stuff like that. Not to like go too off topic, but I saw some new THORFi stuff that's coming out. Hey, Eridanus.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Good. Did you want to say anything about AVAX before we move off the topic to something else?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, AVAX finally rolled out. Super exciting stuff. I think the pool is just getting started. Hopefully in the next few weeks, with kind of the more partnerships that we have lined up rolling out, we'll see kind of an increase in liquidity there and increase in volume. Super exciting. I mean, got delayed a little bit, but overall very smooth once the rollout happened. So excited to get that done, and hopefully we can get the USDT pool live. Already the USDC one is live. So that's another cheap stable coin, which is super useful, I think. Overall very exciting.
Yeah, we made some good learnings as the process of spinning out a EVM chain on a live chain, which we've never done that before. This is our first time doing that as a community. And
yes.
We learned a few things along that way, which is great. And then we'll apply those to things in the future to have smoother rollouts in the future. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like EVM chain is like probably the most complicated type of chain that we connected with, like the router contract and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, now that we kind of like formalize that process and smooth out all the kinks, the next one which should be like smooth sailing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is there any, like, what do you think our next EVM chain should be, in your opinion? Do you have any thoughts or perspective?
I don't know. I mean, obviously the nodes kind of voted for Binance Smart Chain. I don't know if like the recent like news has, affected that. It's obviously, I mean, it's definitely the most like expensive daemon to run for the node operators. I'd be like kind of curious at looking at like Arbitrum or another L2 that like kind of is EVM like. And I think like if we integrated that, like kind of like treated it as a normal L1, that could be interesting.
Yep.
I haven't like really looked at, I mean, I feel like EVMs kind of come and go, or like, a lot of them pop up. The one I was like kind of most excited about was like Polygon Matic, just because they were kind of getting integrated everywhere. So it seemed like that could bring some good activity. But I think that's also a very expensive daemon. So it's like, we have to like balance out all these things.
It's kind of a fun question to ask people this question, just because like there are, 100 different ways you can look at the question and different ways you can strategize or whatever, of like what chains are more important to add, or what chains you should add at all, or whatever. And in the long term, it won't really matter so much, because as we add more chains, there'll be diminishing returns on every additional chain we add, just because there'll be less liquidity and these kind of things. But it's always interesting to ask people these questions. I asked a guy from Edge the other day what he thought, and he was just leaning on like privacy chains, and like Polygon was what he was kind of advocating for.
Yeah. For sure.
It seems like there's a lot of demand, especially with Polygon bridges, I guess, not being the best user experience, and just getting in and out of those ecosystems. So I would be a super fan of any Polygon or ETH L2 integration. But like you said, Eridanus, it's difficult to gauge like which ones to do, because a lot of them are kind of I mean, not to like throw shade or anything like that, but they do come and go. Like there's so many that are competing right now that we don't know which one is going to be the most successful EVM chain. Although we do know that obviously there's a lot of economic activity on Polygon, Arbitrum right now. But how is that going to evolve over the next couple of months or years as that kind of develops?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, honestly. Like, and Chad, you've talked about this a lot, is like, I've kind of, my opinion's kind of changed over the last few months, because like, obviously like I like, wanted to integrate AVAX. I worked on that integration because it was like the most exciting L1, or one of the most exciting this year. But like, as you can see, like liquidity didn't pour in immediately like it did for like Terra. And Terra was like, the Terra community was like way more engaged with the THORChain community. And so like, my opinion is kind of like, well, what's a chain that's like really proven themselves and has an excited user base and like really wants to get into THORChain and is like a simple integration? In my mind, that's like Dash, because it's a UTXO chain. We've done the UTXO integration. It's a cheap daemon to run, and like obviously there are communities fired up. So like if I was like had complete control, my next pick would be Dash.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid point. That's something we kind of like. When we first launched Doge, we kind of had that kind of like learnings as well. Like, well, we launched this coin that's like massive in terms of its economic, power, but the Doge community is not really engaged with the THORChain community at all. And so like the LPs just never really came in full force. Right now, the Doge pool is what, like $3 million or something, $4 million. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's something relatively small. And so it's the same thing of like, you're right about like Dash, and like, the Radix guys, I've been talking to the Radix guys for a while, and it's a small chain in terms of market cap, in part because they can't get listed on any centralized exchange because it's too difficult for centralized exchanges to do that for such a small, low market cap. I asked that, but like that community would be like full on bonkers if we actually added them, and that would create much more activity than even potentially a larger market cap asset, right? Like, but then again, like the same thing is like it doesn't, at some level it doesn't really matter at some level, just because let's assume that AVAX is like pretty dead, for example. Just make that assumption, and the liquidity doesn't come, in at tens of millions of dollars, $100 million, whatever it is. Like, if THORChain becomes the thing that we all think it's going to become, I think we all think this, and it becomes such a popular way of moving assets, and it's integrated to all these different wallets and the DEXs and such, then it may not get its liquidity day one, but it'll naturally get the liquidity, in a few years when THORChain becomes much larger than it is now,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly not worried. I mean, like, I think, over the next few weeks, we'll see these pools grow, but also like we're in a deep bear market right now. Like there's not like the massive amount of activity that will kind of facilitate growth in these pools, like naturally, like we've seen, in other times. So it's like, we're laying the groundwork now. And if like we build the rails, we build the infrastructure, we integrate the chains that like are important. And then once the bull comes, like, things will be great. And I think that's what we're doing. We're setting ourselves up.
Yeah. The more integrations we can get, wallets, DEXs, chains, all these things, like, and then over the next, couple of years of the bear market, like when things go bull again, it's going to create like a stronger and a stronger spring. Like we're like loading the spring, right? What I mean? Pushing that spring tighter and tighter and tighter, ready for it to like blow out. And the more chains we add, the more wallet integrations we add, all that stuff now, that when that market goes bull, like it's just going to create a massive upward pressure on the network in a positive way. So like all this work we're doing now is definitely going to pay dividends in the long term.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
I don't know if you guys have been keeping an eye on the TVL of THORChain, but THORChain's been holding up extremely well, especially compared to other DEXs and liquidity platforms. And if you look at it in Rune terms, it's actually almost entirely unchanged since March. I mean, in dollar terms, it tells its own story, but in Rune terms, there's about the same amount of Rune in the pools as there were during the at its all-time highs for how much Rune being locked in the pools, and in terms of that.
That's pretty fascinating. It just wait for single-sided to launch. Well, I'm very bullish on single-sided. So like once that thing launches, there's so much liquidity just to like wait, just like chomping at the teeth to jump in, to the network. And so like inherently the amount of Rune in the network will also increase when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, for that reason alone, I'm not concerned at all about liquidity. I mean, we're going to get liquidity with single-sided. The thing that like I'm like mainly focused on right now is like getting the wallets and the DEXs to integrate, because we're going to need the volume to support yields. So that's like the name of the game right now in my mind. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think single-sided will be kind of the answer to like solving liquidity issues, and then getting the trade volume to go with it, so we stay capital efficient, is going to be a challenge. But and part of the issue with it really is that as you know, Eridanus, like working with these exchanges and wallets, like it's a very long tail process, and some are quicker than others, and some are slower than others. But like it takes months and months and months of talking and communicating. Like, and I know it's like you and Gavin and other kind of key people are like spending a lot of time and energy, kind of like fostering all that stuff, which I myself and I'm sure the greater community definitely appreciates.
Well, yeah, for sure. And like every time we do this and every conversation we have, we learn something. Like Edge was a great learning experience, because they were great. They like freaking banged the thing out. They absolutely crushed it. But they gave us a lot of good feedback on like things to improve. And that's going to pay dividends. The next one's going to be that much smoother. Like, by the time like we're in like middle of next year, I think we're going to be like cranking through these things.
Yeah. We'll make it so easy for DEXs and wallets to integrate that it'll just be like, a package they just drop in or something like this,
Yeah, exactly.
Super slick, super smooth. And like everything will just work quite well, especially abstracting all the complexities of like, cost of swap fees and DEX aggregation, and like, you just abstract all that complexity away from the developer so they can just focus on what they want to do, which is just doing a swap for their users. Then like it just becomes a no-brainer.
100%. Yeah, that's the goal. And I think we're getting there. Like, I think every week we're making progress towards that. So yeah, I'm super excited. It's interesting how like it's these like three levers. It's like liquidity, security, and volume. And right now, like security, we got unlock. Liquidity is definitely coming, and so like now the next one's volume, and then the volume like increases, and then it's going to go back to like liquidity. It's going to go like back and forth between these things.
That's actually part of the reason why myself and others have been thinking a lot about THORFi. Is that the THORFi's intention is to help us scale this network to a much larger degree, right? The new lending design specifically is like designed to help us scale mostly the security, but also inherently as well the TVL as well, so that we can scale beyond whatever number of rune that we have in the network and actually drive up the value through the dollar figure rather than driving up the value through the number of rune figure.
Yeah. So what's in the latest lending design? Is that just with the withdrawal controls? Is that right?
Withdrawal controls? What'd you say?
Or just like the I don't know what you call passive liquidation, where if the loan itself the collateral is below value, you can't withdraw or something like that.
Oh, hey, that was one of the ideas we floated earlier on about that notion. I don't think that's much support for the idea.
Okay.
I think the circuit breaker that's probably most popular right now is just saying the rune will inflate to 500 million and that's it, and it'll just stop.
Oh, gotcha.
And if the network gets to a place where the room inflates to 500 million, which is the current total possible supply, it doesn't actually change the room monetary policy, then effectively the loans cannot be repaid and they get a form of liquidation. It's not really liquidation because they can get it back eventually. Liquidation is like when you lose your collateral and it's gone forever and you're just, shit out of luck. I think the idea was that 10% or some number of the system income of the network would just basically buy and burn rune to kind of create space for those loans to exit, to repay their loans and get back their collateral and all those things. I think that's kind of one of the ideas that's been talked about. The problem with this, though, is that if you create a circuit breaker, the inherent thing is that the closer we get to the circuit breaker, the less likely people are to open loans and more likely people are to close loans. It's which makes you go closer to the circuit breaker, right? And so it becomes this kind of it could become this kind of feedback loop in some sense, which is the thing that I'm most concerned about the idea of the circuit breaker. The good thing about it, though, is that it localizes the risk of THORFi to the ones that are interacting with THORFi. So if you're just an LP or a node operator and whatever, the THORFi design holds very little risk to you in terms of the supply of room going to 1.3 trillion as it did for Luna. It goes to something, basically the people who take out loans are the ones that kind of get hurt by it, but they kind of aware of that when they take out their loan, and it poses very little risk to the general network. Even in the new design, the derived assets are no longer derived assets; they're more derived units in some sense, derived units of account, if you want to call it that. So there actually is no stable coin anymore. There's a price fee that the network uses to know the price of rune, but the market cap of the Tor stable coin, so to speak, is always going to be zero, right? And so because it's always going to be zero, it poses no actual threat. Or there's no possibility of a Terra Luna like situation in that context, just because the market cap not going to be 50 billion or whatever it was. It would be $0, and so it has no threat in that regard. So
is that because you can't hold Tor and you have to swap Tor into another layer one asset?
Right, that's exactly right. Because before it was a unit of account and it also was an asset, and now we're just saying, just to make things simpler and a more conservative approach to kind of help the community feel more comfortable with it. It's just a unit of account. And so when you swap to Tor, when you swap take out a loan, you don't receive your Tor anymore. You receive whatever asset you want to receive. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Ethereum, it could be whatever. The accounting is still in dollars, like your debt is still in Tor, right? But you don't receive the Tor, you receive something else as your actual receiving asset. So it's still used in some sense because it allows you to short the dollar and long whatever asset you're receiving. So if you want to short the dollar and then receive Bitcoin, that's basically what happens, right? Effectively. So you always short the asset you receive and then long the asset you trade it for. And so you're receiving Tor hypothetically in the background, but then receiving Bitcoin or whatever the asset is that you're into. And so that was part of the kind of idea that the reason why the THORFi design had changed is because in the original implementation that we floated with the community 8 months ago, whatever it was, there was no single-sided yield, right? And Thor savings in the THORFi design was basically the same concept of what single-sided yield is. It's the idea that you can provide one asset and not have rune exposure and then get yield in that asset. And so we've approached that aspect of the THORFi design just with single-sided yield, which doesn't require any burning or minting of rune. And so therefore, like, the community as a whole is very much, comfortable with that and very much bullish on it for that matter. And so now we have we don't need Thor savings anymore because single-sided yield accomplishes the same goal, and we don't need to have two things that do the same thing, because that would be, confusing and problematic for some reasons. So now we got to figure out how else we want to, do THORFi. And the lending design no longer made sense, because if you don't have Thor savings, then the lending design doesn't work anymore, because those two things required each other to accomplish each other's goals. And in this new design, Thor savings is isolated and separate from lending, whereas in the original THORFi design, they were tightly coupled. And so we can enable and disable these things independently of each other if we saw fit. So even in a worst case scenario where, the lending design, doesn't work for some reason and things kind of go sideways, single-sided yield still exists, right? And AMM trading, swaps, LPs, all that stuff still exists and is unaffected for the most part from it. And so that becomes a much more palpable change to the network, which will hopefully get the community to be more positive about the idea of THORFi and how it can help safely improve and scale the network.
That's sweet. Yeah, I've been digging into the new THORFi design a bit. I don't know. I assume you guys are still working on it, so that's why it's difficult to nail all the concepts down, because it's constantly just in flight.
Yeah.
But there is there is a current issue that's in GitLab. It looks like. So is that the most current design, or is it still being shuffled out of the past?
I mean, that's the current design. I'm still open to shifting or changing things, and I'm sure the rest of the team is as well. I wouldn't be shocked if things have made a few more tweaks or changes between now and then from the original design documents referred to. I mean, this still needs to be more research on it, more mathematical analysis, economic analysis to figure out its pros and its cons, its weaknesses, its strong points, and where it does well and where it fails. Right. I think that's going to require more time and analysis from not only just the devs, but the community around us.
So POL and single-sided, that's kind of the first step towards this, right? That's kind of the Savers Vaults of THORFi.
Yep.
And that's being tested in StageNet currently. I think we've already, we've identified some changes, some fixes. We're pushing those up, doing more testing. What would be the next little piece of this if we were to ship something to StageNet to move towards the THORFi design?
If we're going to do THORFi, the next component would be the code change around derived units, which I've actually already written that code for a while back for the original THORFi design. But there need to be a few changes to it. They made a few changes to the design. For example, when you mint and burn, or swap, I shouldn't say mint and burn, or maybe I should say mint and burn. When you mint and burn in and out of the derived units, the swap fee is now going to be just burnt, right, rather than supplied to some users. And so the reason why that is because it helps support the network from being attacked. Because if you take the swap fees is what's basically protecting the network from price manipulation, right? Because it becomes overtly expensive to attack the network, and you will, burn more money or lose more money than you would gain. But if you take those swap fees and you just realign it to somebody else, we're going to give it to these people over here, these LPs, or this group of people over here. Well, then the attacker can be one of those people and regain some of the swap fees that they, paid to attack the network, which is obviously not what you want. So really the only two choices we can make is either we burn the rune or we just kind of basically, donate it to the reserve. And then from there comes its use for the POL and for block rewards for the greater economy. It made more sense to me, and I'm still open to changing my mind, but my current position is that it makes more sense just to burn it. And so then it becomes this continuously burning rune out of the network in a one-way fashion that can never be reminted, at least not in the context of derived units. So that's one of the other changes we have to make to the design. But that also makes it nice because now we're starting to burn rune continuously, kind of like a IP 1559 thing. But that would be the first part, is getting the derived assets done first, and then the second part would be the actual lending part, which again, even most of the lending code's already written. Just have to change a few things to address the new designs, but largely the same thing.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be super cool to test this stuff out like on a live network in StageNet. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, that'd be great. I also want to scale up StageNet to be a little bit larger and economic size. Put a few million in the pools in total, just to get to be a little bit beefier before we start testing this stuff out. But
yeah,
otherwise you're going to test situations that are like not viable in reality. Just because the pool's only got $10 in it.
Yeah, I think the AVAX pool's got $500 in it.
Yeah, it's pretty small, and for that kind of extremely small scenario, kind of, basically, yeah. You guys are Cal?
Yeah, I'm here. Well, yeah, I'm not sure like how far you want to go into THORFi today, or just like what else has been on your mind, because I mean, there's been just so many recent events in the THORChain ecosystem. So I mean, I guess what is the next thing that you want to discuss? You want to keep on THORFi?
I mean, I always love THORFi. It's always a fascinating and fun conversation. It's kind of a changing horse as well, from time to time. But it's like, for me, it's like we delivered on the original promise of THORChain, which was to build this chain agnostic AMM, right? And we obviously delivered on that. And I think we kind of got interested in the idea of doing something more, because there was just so much more opportunity in the space, in the DeFi space, to do things. And not only just do things, like just throw together a lending protocol that we've seen done 100 times before by other protocols in the space, but really offer something different and unique and more, innovative, and offer something that nobody else is offering. Even like the lending design is structured in reverse of a lot of other lending designs, where in the other lending designs, you're basically looking for the best LTV scenario, and by doing so, you're taking on the most amount of risk of liquidations and such. And for degens, they love this, right? They love to kind of have this kind of high stakes gambling that they more or less do. But in THORChain's designs, it's actually the inverse of that, where the risk is extraordinarily small, but the LTV is probably going to be pretty large, right? In terms of like the amount of room, the amount of assets you get from your collateral will be relatively small, I think, just based upon market demand, right? It's not a number that I would set or you would set, but just market demands will determine what the appropriate LTV is. And for right now, like I think like synthetics is at like about 400% collateralization ratio, right? So you put in, it's not going to be that's pretty high, right? And I think for us, it should be even higher, just because the loan attributes are so, delicious in a sense, where there's no liquidations and there's no interest. It becomes like kind of a no-brainer in some way. So I think we're likely to see, 500, 600, 700% CR, if you ask my opinion. We don't really know until we actually launch the thing and see what happens. But
yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit recently, because it seems like, it seems like at some point you're going to reach that equilibrium point, but at that equilibrium point, no loans are going to be taken out because the LTV ratio is too high. And I guess that's kind of the point of the system, is to keep increasing that LTV ratio until lending slows down, I guess, in a sense, just because of the, restrictive LTV ratio. Right. But doesn't that kind of it slows the whole system down, right? Like you want people taking out loans, and if the LTV ratio is huge and the system kind of wants to get to a point where no more loans are being taken out, then isn't that negative for THORFi?
Yes and no. So there's two reasons why I really like this idea of a free market collateralization ratio. One is that we want to get the highest but we as the network want to get the highest collateralization loans possible, because that's just the most tasty for the network. It just means that the amount of like net burned ruin from that loan would be the highest, right, as a percentage. So we want to see those as much as possible. They actually are better for the network in many ways, which is great. But we also use this mechanism to be able to control the amount of loans that are going out. We don't want to just go apeshit wild on day one and just have $1 trillion go out the door or whatever, like hypothetically speaking. Just that would be a little bit too much too fast. So we like to be kind of more calculated and slow moving here on purpose. And so we want to be able to kind of control, like, okay, on day one, we want to see, maybe $1 million go out, right, in loans or whatever, or whatever the hell the number is, and we can scale that over time, just like how we scaled the caps of the pools in the initial days of multiple chain chaos now. And so if we want to, put up more loans, we can, right? It's like, say we hit the cap. Let's just say, for sake of argument, the cap is 600% CR, right? That's just what the free market's willing to take for this kind of loan of these attributes, and people just stop taking out loans, and then somebody closes the loan, and then somebody opens that loan back up because the CR changed from 600 to 500 and 590%. I don't know, whatever it is, right? But if we want to keep on pushing out more and more loans, we can, right? So all we have to do is we just buy them a mirror. We can change the max CR. We lower that number, and then all of a sudden loans are going out for 500%, right? So now a bunch more loans go out, go from 500% up to 600% again, and then we kind of more or less stop. And so, like, we have the ability as a community to kind of open that lever, right, and be able to open up that kind of those floodgates and allow more loans to go out whenever we feel like as a community. The question is, like, how much do we actually want to go out, right? Like, how much is safe and how much is unsafe, and that becomes a different conversation the community can kind of like debate about, of how conservative or liberal they want to be about the amount of loans relative to the pool depths, for example, or relative to the rune market cap, whatever that however you want to calculate it or look at it. That is all controllable by us as a community. We have tight controls on that stuff, so we can scale it as large as we want to, or as small as we want to.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if people are interested in checking out the design, it's on GitLab. You can check it out right now. And the circuit breaker proposal is also up there too, and that's interesting to read through as well. I really like that idea of having some kind of, like, backstop on things, so that way you can safely unwind in the event, like on the just before things start to go south.
Yeah.
Great idea.
I'm very mixed on the whole circuit breaker. I get the value of it, and I get why people like it. But to me, it also feels like it just makes it more likely that lending won't work out. Like it makes it more likely that we'll hit that 500 million cap. And therefore, wear that black mark on our faces of, like, oh, lending didn't work out. THORChain had a problem, right? Like, and if it's non-zero to say that, like, if we didn't have the circuit breaker, we wouldn't need it, which is kind of funny to say. But if we didn't have it, we wouldn't need it, and we wouldn't have a problem, and we'd never hit that 500 million anyway, right? In part because the circuit breaker is not there. As funny as that sounds. But that's really how it is, I think. This is how I see it.
Yeah, if anyone from the audience also wants to come up and discuss THORFi, then just hit the request button. We can let someone else up. But yeah, I guess just pivoting a little bit, there was an article from the Defiant out today about THORChain and the Avalanche release, and it was actually very interesting because it was framed as, like, THORChain's, like, hitting its stride after the exploits, which is, it just seems so crazy because that was like like 14, 15 months ago at this point. But the article from the Defiant is just like, oh yeah, like it seems to be more about the exploits, last summer than it is about the Avalanche integration. It's interesting to see how, like, where the focus is of the crypto media at all times. I don't know why they're so hack obsessed. Maybe it's just people click on those types of articles.
Yeah, it's definitely more clicky, right, for sure. But it's also because, like, to say that AVAX is the thing that's, like, hitting our stride, to me is a little bit comical, just because we've done things as a community that, to me, is much bigger than what AVAX is doing. At least in my opinion, that's true. And we also have things downstream that are, like single-sided, for example, and order books potentially, and other things that are probably more substantial as hitting our stride, quote unquote. So, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I'm not personally a huge fan of the Defiant. I think I was for a while, and then the more interactions that I personally have with the reporters there, it just feels like it's not. It feels like they're just clicky and they're looking for a quote from, like one of the guys that came into our Discord just wanted to quote any random person from the community about something, and just kind of like basically trolling the Discord, like trying to get somebody to comment, say something about something, and it's just like It was just, I just didn't appreciate it.
Yeah, probably a bridge hack or something like that.
It was something silly, just like it didn't feel like journalism to me, just my sense, my 2 cents. But like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that publication, to be honest.
Bringing up DGens for a brighter future. Sorry. What's up, man?
Hey, no, it's been a little while since I've been in these chats. I've been so like tied up in so many different projects. I kind of wanted to make a comment on your discussion about hacks and stuff like that. And I think right now the reality of media is that it draws more attention whenever it's negative or polarizing, and it's just unfortunate to see that that's what a lot of the crypto media is latching onto. I'm still a massive THORChain bull, even though it's been a while since I've been on these chats. But I'm very optimistic for the future, and now that AVAX has come on, I just all the next stages. What is the what in your guys' view? Sorry, my English failed me. It's been a long day dealing with crap from the IRS. Anyways, what do you think will be the most impactful upgrade for THORChain coming in the near future, whether it's an asset or anything having to do with THORFi?
Definitely a single side. I'm curious to hear Eridanus' perspective and Kyle's perspective. But for me, like the most immediate and the largest payoff, like largest ROI feature, is going to be single sided. There's just so much capital that's just waiting to jump into this thing. I was even talking to somebody, I won't mention their name, but like who's a very well known person in the deep crypto industry, like a very famous person, got a lot of followers on Twitter, like a lot, and they want to build a product that wraps single sided, it just wraps it. It doesn't, it just provides capital and like it just, there's so much interest in this feature, and what it can do for the network is pretty large. So I'm quite bullish on that particular feature. That's going to be big, I think, for the most immediate and the largest ROI.
Yeah, I think for me, that's really the most obvious thing. Oh, sorry, you can speak.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I'm very excited for that as well, especially the layer of simplicity that it adds to, just being able to take your assets and, start earning, on the platform. And I think that's going to draw a lot of users very soon. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's not even...
Anyways, thank you guys for letting me talk.
No worries. But there's actually like what people, we haven't really said this publicly too much, but not that it's a big secret or anything, but one of the changes we're making, I think Eridanus is actually the one that's actually making the change, if I'm not mistaken, is that like when you want to deploy, Bitcoin or ETH or whatever asset into single-sided, the memo is going to be blank, right? So if you just don't supply an upper term with the memo, all these things, and then just the network will just assume what you're trying to accomplish is just do single-sided Bitcoin or single-sided ETH or single-sided whatever the asset is. And so like why that's actually kind of a big deal is just because that means that any wallet in the world, whether it's THORSwap or Ledger or some wallet that hasn't even integrated with THORChain in the least bit, they can use their own wallet as it is now and just throw in some Bitcoin or throw in some Doge or whatever the thing is going to be. And so that just makes it so clean, so simple, like so readily available to everybody, no matter what wallet you're using, just to be able to add liquidity and earn more BTC.
Yeah, I've been talking about this a bit because it's just like such a cool concept that you'll be able to make a website with just a QR code and like 3 sentences of instructions on how to use it. And that can be your interface to deposit onto THORChain. The UX can be baked down like to be so simple, it'd be completely unrecognizable to someone who's like using like THORSwap today, right? Like anyone can make such a simple interface to deposit with any wallet, like Bitcoin Core wallet or really anything else. Like it can really be distilled down a lot. So single-sided is like the biggest thing that's coming out of the pipeline and like in the immediate future. But to answer your question about like, other things that could be big, I'm going to say that we don't know what the biggest thing can be yet. I think one of the biggest things for THORChain will be one of these integrations, and no one knows which integration will be the one that brings all the volume. I think I saw with Stripe. Stripe when Stripe started really growing as a company, they started getting most of their volume through Lyft, I believe. And that was just one of the many different partners that integrated Stripe, but that became one of Stripe's like primary revenue drivers. And I think that we'll see integrations like that with THORChain, where it'll just be another one of those integrations that comes along, but it'll have adoption and start pushing a ton of volume through it. So I think you could argue that we don't know what the biggest integration for THORChain will be, because you just can't predict those things, like what's going to happen in terms of volume and adoption in the future. Hey, bringing up THORG. You can talk, Chad.
No, I was curious to get Eridanus' perspective as well. I was curious to get what he thought. I think he stepped away. THORG, how's it going? Yo, THORG, how are you? Okay, THORG is apparently also stepped away.
Everyone's gone. Maybe we're just getting rugged right now. It might just be us.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
Yeah,
now we can hear you.
How are you guys?
Good.
So I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to speak, and I wanted to give props to the team for continuing really to develop the ecosystem of THORChain and improving, especially during the bear market. I've been with THORChain since 2019, pretty much since almost inception, and been seeing THORChain developing through and through, and just wanted to give the team the props that they deserve for developing and continuing to develop and improving the space. I wanted to get a timeline, if possible, for the single-sided.
Yeah, so single-sided, the code is already done, and right now it's being tested on StageNet with the Nine Realms team and others. Some members of the community have also been participating in that testing procedures and processes. How quickly it'll arrive on mainnet is kind of tough to say, and I feel like whatever timeline I throw out there will probably be wrong, to be honest with you. But I'm hoping we can see single-sided on mainnet in the next, I don't know, I'll say 4 weeks. Seems like a reasonable time frame, assuming that we don't find any large issues or bugs that need to be patched and released and all these kind of things.
Awesome. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, and as with any like time estimates, obviously these things like just fluctuate, and no one knows how long it could be. Like right now, it's being tested, but really just depends on if they find bugs, if people are confident of it moving to mainnet. But all the mechanics of it are done. It's just getting that final stages, and I'm sure people can get some kind of sense on how long these things take from just the other integrations, like with Terra and Atom and Avalanche, just like how long things take to bake in StageNet and be confident of it, especially this being like a brand new feature. So I would guess maybe a little longer. Like I don't actually know, but it could be longer than that. It could be shorter than that. No one knows.
We've tested we went through a process last week or earlier this week. I can't remember which one it was, but to test the POL. So there's really two components to single-sided. One is the POL part of it, or protocol and liquidity, and the other part is the actual single-sided part, because you really can't have one without the other. So most likely we'll actually launch the POL first. That'll come out and launch on mainnet first before we see the single-sided. And that was just tested this past week, and for the most part, it was tested very well. Everything went pretty swimmingly. There were a couple of minor bugs, nothing not to get too upset about, but just a couple of small things. And so we might see that on mainnet, maybe sooner in the next couple of weeks or so. And that will be launched. To be honest, it won't be used very much because the synth utilization isn't high enough to trigger the POL to act and start adding liquidity into the pool, except for the stables. The stables are the only ones that have a large quantity of synths in there. That's largely because of our touch bots, I think. But once we enable the single-sided stuff, we'll then start buying synthetic Bitcoin like crazy, and the POL will start acting in that case and scenario. So I think you'll see it's really going to be two components to it. First one's releasing the POL, and second one's releasing single-sided. I'm hoping that both of them will get pushed out there in the next month or so, maybe a month, maybe two, but we should see relatively soon.
Yep, that'll be super sick.
One quick question, Chad. Can you please give us a little bit more specification on the user? What are the plus?
I'm sorry, what's the question? You kind of cut out there a second.
I didn't hear it either. Sorry, what did you say, THORChain?
I wanted to ask a little bit more excited. Did you guys hear? Can you hear me?
So I think I think I only caught like the last 20% of that.
So I was asking if you maybe could explain if there's any risk for the user by providing single-sided liquidity.
Oh, risk to the user. Good question to ask. So the risk, the person who's depositing single-sided asset, they don't take on any IL risk, right? And so they always have access to their principal, which is whatever quantity of Bitcoin they put in, minus whatever swap fees that required to enter or exit that position. So, and then the question then becomes like, how much yield do they actually produce? I think that'll probably be the biggest kind of like kind of divider in some sense, because there's not much risk to this to the user other than just general protocol risk. Like, it's not the same as being a regular LP where you take on two different assets and you're taking IL risk, blah, blah, and all these things. But because of those attributes, because it's such a relatively lower risk investment mechanism, naturally the yield of single-sided, I'm assuming, will be rather low, right? For something like Bitcoin, I'm expecting it to be like sub 1%, to be honest with you, just because there'll be so many people that's like demanding this feature. The pools will get very, very deep relative to the bond size, and then the incentive pendulum will swing towards the nodes. The nodes will be making a lot more money than they're making now, and the pools will be making less money just because there's so much demand to be in the pools, right? The incentive pendulum's doing its job of trying to push more incentive to become nodes. So, like, I think that the result will be that the yield will be relatively low on these things, but it'll be very safe income, relatively safe in the DeFi sense of it. Yeah, and I think that'll be people are willing to take sub 1% Bitcoin yield, because where else are you going to get that? Nowhere really.
Celsius.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can get from Celsius, I guess, if they're still around. A lot more. I think BlockFi is still around, I guess, are going to be acquired by FTX pretty soon. But like, even them, like, it's like you get 0.5% for the first Bitcoin, and then after that you get like 0.00 something percent. Like it goes to basically.
Yeah, that's true. Even with the regular Celsius borrowing rate, I guess it really depends on how many Bitcoin you're depositing. You're right, but like it's definitely less than that on even pre-blow up Celsius. Which reminds me about that. The other thing with Celsius. Did you see that they basically just doxed every single one of their customers on an SEC filing? It's just absolutely just insane. They posted the entire transaction history, like everyone's name that's withdrawing and the amounts that they withdrew on which dates after the SEC filing, like yesterday or last night or something like that.
Wow,
it's crazy. You can correlate basically every single Celsius customer with their on-chain addresses. It's absolutely crazy.
Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah, I feel bad if you. God. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Q&A? AMA?
Yeah, there's THORChain Vegan.
All right.
Hi, this question's for Eridanus, if he's actually still here. I don't know. I see him in the audience, but I was just wondering if there's anything that can be shared about the potential integration with Trust Wallet, just because that would just be such a major boon for the system.
If Eridanus is there, you're welcome to come up and answer it. In the meantime, I guess I can say that I know they've talked about doing it, Trust Wallet, on several occasions, and they've already kind of publicly stated that they're going to use THORChain at some point in time. The question just becomes down to about like roadmaps, right? Like they have a bunch of features they're trying to add already. How important is the THORChain feature? How far down the priority list does it go? So I'm not personally aware of any active development happening on the Trust Wallet side of it. Maybe there is, I'm just not aware of it. And of course, we're readily available to Trust Wallet to help them and support them in any way we can. We'll even lend out some of our engineers to help them add to their code base. We'll do whatever we can to support them for sure. But to my knowledge, I know there's intention to do it, but nobody's actually actively working on it quite yet.
Hey, sorry. I'm kind of multitasking right now on another thing, but yeah. So Trust Wallet, I mean, I think they're basically scoping it out at the moment, and I think they as Chad, you were saying, it all comes down to roadmaps, and obviously these wallets have big roadmaps, and it's hard to get priority. But I can say that there is interest from their side. We're actually meeting with them soon, in the next couple of weeks, just to like kind of get more clarity on what they would need. And yeah, as Chad said, like we're like trust wallet would be huge. So like that would be like first priority. That would be like all hands on deck on that side. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think there's interest. I think they're open to it. We just need to get like aligned with them in terms of like what the engineering lift is from their side and what we can do to like make that as light as possible. And that's what we're going to do. And hopefully we can get a good result and get them integrated, like hopefully Q1, but we'll see how that conversation goes.
Awesome. Thank you.
And even what we were talking about before about like making it easier and easier for integrations to happen for like wallets and such, like as Eridanus and I were talking earlier, like 6 months from now, we'll be in a much better position to make it even easier and quicker and less, time required or engineers required to actually interface with us. So hopefully by the time that happens, we'll just make it, simple for them to do it, and they'll just store it together in a weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we want to make it like where it's just a no-brainer. It's like, oh, this will take like 30 minutes to just drop in. Like, yeah, like why would we not do this?
Yeah.
Just crazy because like Edge Wallet, it seemed like they did their integration like faster than you can blink. I wonder what the actual differences between these wallets and like how their development process is, and like why it takes someone like Trust Wallet months to vet one of these things. Edge Wallet's just like, all right, let's get it in, let's ship it out 2 weeks.
Well, I'm sure part of it is like just like the larger companies just have like more like bullshit that they need to like red tape, and like they have to like go through compliance and whatever. That it just takes longer. Edge Wallet, like Paul, the CEO, just freaking like he did it himself. He just like put the team on his back and wrote it in like 3 weeks. And they can move like quickly. I don't know. Like he was like kind of in control of the whole thing. So that was great. And I think probably for Trust Wallet, it's like, they have to go through and get approval and then scope it out and put it in the, development sprints and get UX review. It just like takes so much longer.
For sure.
Cool. Anyone else want to come up? All right. That's looking like a no. I guess we can wrap then, Chad, unless you got anything else you want to talk about.
No, man. I mean, like, I guess my final kind of parting thought is that somebody came up earlier and they're kind of like compliment us on building and continuing to push things during the bear market. And to me, it's just like, that's just like, for us, we were born in the bear market. We eat the bear market for breakfast in some sense. Like we don't really give much thought or cost to it. We just keep on shipping and keep on doing what we think we need to do to get this protocol to the next step or the next level. And I think like, specifically like Nine Realms especially has kind of shown this quite well over the last couple of months, and how like we really haven't seen much of a turnover at all that I can think of within the Nine Realms team or within the OG team. And like people aren't, oftentimes when you get into bear markets, teams get sad and community starts yelling at their devs, and devs get, pissed off, and they just kind of YOLO and quit and commonly rug. But like that's obviously not even remotely close to what's happening here, which is the reason why we're able to keep on shipping, is because we just stay focused, and we there's so much more work to be done, and so much value to be added. And so like it just becomes the bear market becomes like not even part of the thought process to some degree. So I just much appreciate the work that the Eridanus and the rest of the Nine Realms team is doing, as well as of course the OG people that are working on the product still as well. And like everybody's just doing a great job, and their heads are down, and they just like keep on shipping.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely loving the bear market, because it's just like we can focus on the work, and there's so much less like distraction and noise. And like, I mean, like, and like, we're like, I and the whole Nine Realms team is so grateful for the original team for building a system that like can survive and like can expand and contract. And like when there's like lower activity, it's fine. It does what it does. And we don't need to like be constantly worrying about like, scraping, for the little bits of volume and yield. It's like we have a system that's very stable, and we're heads down building, and like it's great because we can focus, we can deliver on what we need to deliver on, like safely, securely. And then once the bull market comes, like we're going to scale like easy breezy. And like, that's when we pay dividends, and it's going to be, I'm really enjoying it. And the system that we have is like super solid. So it's just great to build on it.
And by that point, we'll have by far the largest decentralized Bitcoin pool. It's already almost there, but by the time the next bull market rolls around, there's no question whether THORChain will have the deepest decentralized Bitcoin liquidity pool or not. I think that's kind of inevitable at this point.
Yeah, we'd probably we'd expand beyond what like Bitcoin sidechains are doing now, like Sovereign and that kind of stuff, like or Liquid Network or even Lightning Network. We probably have more Bitcoin in THORChain than the Lightning Network has a Bitcoin.
I think it's close. I'm not exactly sure how many Bitcoin there are on the Lightning Network, but I think it's within an order of magnitude of THORChain. Like, I think it's fairly close. Something we'll smash pretty easily with single side fields.
Last time I looked, we had half the amount of Bitcoin that they had. We were only like 2x away. And just the growth of what we're building, we're doing, especially with single sided, just to be a multiplier on that. Like, shocked. Yeah. To me, it seems almost obvious that we'll surpass every other network in terms of having the most liquid Bitcoin pools in the world outside of the centralized exchanges.
Sweet, guys. Thanks so much for coming on. Enjoy having you both all the time. Eridanus, the GOAT, shipping out AVAX, and Chad. Thanks, man.
He is the GOAT.
Thanks, guys.
Where's the GOAT icon? I can't make the GOAT sound. Where's their GOAT sound?
What the?
Where's the GOAT? I need a GOAT sound. I got the clown. I don't got any GOAT. No, that's a dog. It won't work. God damn, there's no GOAT here. This shit sucks. Fuck you. Twitter Spaces.
There it is. I'll take it. All right. See you later, guys.
Catch you later.